Welcome to week 1, unit 2 of our OpenSAP course, Understanding the Architecture. My name is Marcel Wächter and I'm a development architect. Today I will talk about the architecture behind Fiori Elements. Let's get started. The most important thing you need to know is that SAP Fiori Elements generates the application you see at runtime by combining 5 building blocks. The first one is a floor plan, like an individual list page or an object page. This one is provided by the Fiori Elements framework. It takes care about how content is displayed and how the application behaves. The second and the third ones are to be provided by you, an OData service and OData annotations. With both, you define what content is displayed on the screen. So there is no longer a need to code a UI with JavaScript. Instead, you provide an abstract description of the semantics and the behavior. This means you can now focus on the business functionality, how it behaves and how it should be consumed. Of course, we also provide flexibility if you want to change behaviors or introduce additional controls. There are two optional means of adapting and enhancing the application: no-code configuration and custom code extensions. I will now explain you those 5 building blocks in more detail. Let's start with the floor plans provided by the framework. You could imagine a floor plan like a blueprint. It has many placeholders for controls, like for a filter bar and filters inside, or a table with columns inside. And it also describes all the possible behaviors. So, for example, what happens if the user clicks on a table row? He could navigate to a detail page, or he could navigate to an external application. Once the application is started, the Fiori Elements processor kicks in, and with the metadata and configuration provided by you, it turns this blueprint into real UI5 view, having the placeholders replaced by actual controls. The floor plans and the controls contain many features. To give you some examples, the user can personalize the controls and can create different variants, or they can share or bookmark pages, or they can use Excel export and import. And as long as your service supports it, users can also change data or can create or delete entries, or they can trigger actions. The floor plans are also responsive, which means depending on your device or screen size, we show different content. There's one last important thing to mention: the full support of product standards. As long as your application doesn't contain code extensions, your application is enterprise ready out of the box, which means a huge saving of costs. Now have a look at the building blocks you need to provide. The first thing every SAP Fiori Elements app needs is an OData endpoint. So what is OData? OData is a protocol that sits on top of standard HTTP and defines how you exchange data with the backend. It contains a meta description of your data model. It describes your model in entities and properties and the relationship between. OData supports not only the so-called CRUD operations, which stands for create, read, update and delete, but also actions and functions. And it has a powerful built-in query language. This one allows clients to query optimize read requests and to filter data or to search data, and also to aggregate data. And with capabilities and restrictions, it tells the client on the supported operations, but also on the ones which are currently restricted. On top of the standardized OData, SAP built the draft concept, which is also fully supported by Fiori Elements. With draft, you can build professional and dynamic applications with features like you can keep a draft and can continue later, or you can even switch to a different device. There are currently 2 major versions available which are supported by Fiori Elements v2 and v4. v4 is the evolution of v2, and it not only contains new features, but it is also an ISO-approved OASIS standard. While Fiori Elements take advantage of OData v4, we take care to keep the patterns and layout stable and consistent with both versions. OData also allows you to annotate metadata, and this is really cool because if you annotate metadata, you describe how the data is to be interpreted. I want to give you some examples. With annotations, you can specify that an amount field and a currency field belong together, or that a field does not contain only a string, but it's actually an email address. Based on this annotation, the framework knows how to render the field. Annotation can also define the behavior, for example, whether a business object is editable or not. And they can even give consumption hints, like if a field is clickable or not. You might ask yourself how to create an OData service and how to provide annotations. First of all, I want to emphasize that Fiori Elements works with every compliant OData service, which can be provided by any backend. But if you can, use the power of SAP's backends and create an OData service with a few clicks only. Both the Cloud Application Programming Model, called CAP, and the RESTful Application Programming Model, called RAP, provide an outer exposure from your CDS view to an OData service. Both stacks allow you to annotate your model in CDS directly, next to its definition. But also with the classical upper programming model, you can still create OData service with SAP Gateway and annotation provider classes. If annotations are part of the OData service, we talk about backend-driven annotations. Nevertheless, backend annotations are optional. You could also provide all annotations in local annotation files. Or you can provide both. The local annotations will then override the backend annotations on a term level. Those local annotations are created in your application project and follow your application lifecycle. You can use them to implement features which are not yet supported by your backend version, or if you want to implement different variants of an application with one common OData service, or you make usage of an OData service provider which couldn't provide annotations at all. As you learned, the floor plans make use of your metadata and annotations to decide which controls are to be rendered. But not only this, they also consider configuration that can be optional, provided by you. I want to give you one example. In the list report we show a table, and as you might know, we have a few tables in UI5 implemented for different use cases. But according to our current UX design, we use the responsive table. That's what you get once you generate and start the application the first time. But if you decide that another table would be the better choice, you can provide this configuration to your list report page, which you can easily do with Fiori tools. We have many of those configuration settings. They are not treated as semantical, and they are tied to this specific application. So that's why they're not stored as annotations, but as configuration. We even provide a so-called layering for this configuration. So let's imagine you decide to change the table to a grid table, but one user group runs your application on a tablet or on a mobile, on which the responsive table works better. The administrator or key user can then switch it back to a responsive table. I already mentioned Fiori Elements provides a huge set of UI patterns and features which are commonly used and fit for most use cases. But for sure, Fiori Elements as a framework can't provide every kind of behavior and design as a built-in feature. To not stop you of using Fiori Elements, code extensions allow you to write your own code and inject it into Fiori Elements applications. This can be own controls added at certain places. So to give you some example, a new section in the object page, or a new column in the table, or a new action into any toolbar. By using building blocks, which are provided by SAP Fiori Elements, like the field or the table, you can rapidly build your extensions while still keeping a consistent look and feel. But you'll not have the full flexibility to add controls at every place in the UI. This ensures your custom content is still available in case of layout changes due to SAP Fiori design evolutions. And it doesn't break the UI after an upgrade. Same also applies to code, which can run at certain hooks. For example, whenever the user attempts to save a document. In those hooks, we provide you a so-called extension API with a set of methods you can use in your custom coding. For Example to get a list of selected items in a table. Please note, extensions also come at a cost. You own the code and you have to ensure functional correctness and UX consistency, especially after upgrades. And you have to fulfill all product standards. We are nearing the end of this presentation, so let me summarize and give you an outlook on the next sessions to learn more about SAP Fiori elements and tools. You learned about the building blocks which are required to build an enterprise-ready application with Fiori elements. The floor plans, which are provided by the framework, define how content is shown and behaves. An OData service and annotations, which are to be provided by you, define what is shown and which feature shall be enabled. Optional, you can fine-tune your application with configuration or can even extend it with custom code. In the next session, you will get more insight into OData services and annotations. Thanks for joining.